Profit and sustainability rules have been a big talking point over the last week after Leicester escaped a points deduction. They won an appeal despite breaching financial rules. They got off due to a technicality, leaving the Premier League, quote, surprised and disappointed. Well, the man waiting to talk to us is Ben Peppi, who's a sports commercial advisor. Afternoon, thanks for coming in. Embarrassing for the Premier League, this?
I think they'll be surprised and disappointed, as they've outlined. I think it's a kick in the teeth in terms of the applicability of the PSR rules. Obviously, there's a lot of noise given the end of the transfer window around profit and sustainability and around the application of the rules. So I think, per their words, they're surprised and disappointed at the way they've not been able to apply them. Leicester have obviously done very well to get off and avoid the points deduction. I think there's no kind of doubting that the overspend happened. It's just the fact they've been able to align themselves with what the rule book actually said, as opposed to say a loophole. They've done very well to be able to navigate.
It was about timing, wasn't it? It was the fact that they were not technically
Correct.
in the Premier League and therefore weren't subject to their rules. That's the basis of it, isn't it?
Exactly that. So their financial year end actually got pushed back, which meant that they fell into this period where, when their accounting period would have been, they would have been members of the Premier League, but by the fact that they had pushed that back, it meant that they basically kind of fell outside of the period in which they could be charged, which is how they've got off.
OK. So do they need to change the rules so that loopholes like that can be closed?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a number of aspects to it. So there's rules like that, and then there's also the fact that, as we've seen within the window, the fact that clubs are now having to comply with PSR in such a strict way and operating according to that means that, in line with what we've seen within the transfer window, that academy players are being sold and other things are starting to happen at clubs, which means that the rules are there for very good reason. It's just the way that they are currently implemented and the way that clubs are having to comply with them isn't exactly how they may have originally imagined it when the rules were drawn up.
Yeah, because if I'm a fan, I hate the idea that a player who's been with my club since he was 8 or whatever it is, kind of, in quotes, has to be sold.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And that wasn't the plan, was it?
No, it wasn't the plan. And the fact that that's now happening means that there will undoubtedly, over time, be either a change to the rules or there will be tweaks made, because it's not in anyone's interest, clubs, the Premier League, or anybody else, for academy products to be sold. Every fan, every club owner wants to see youth promoted, and if that now starts to not happen, or they get sold sooner than they would because the fact that they represent a pure profit from an accounting perspective, means that it's not the way everyone would have imagined it when it got first implemented.
Yeah. So the Manchester City case is going to be finally heard. We don't know quite when, we don't know quite how long it'll take and all that. It'll all be in secret. Yeah. But if Leicester City can find lawyers who are clever enough to spot a loophole, a cynic might think Manchester City might find even better lawyers who can find even more loopholes if they needed to.
Yeah, so I mean, as we've spoken about with Leicester, it's the fact that the way the rules are implemented, as opposed to necessarily finding loopholes or rules not being kind of adhered to. And I think the City case is much deeper, much wider. There's obviously 115 charges that have kind of been labelled at them. So
which City deny, let's stress.
Absolutely, and all of those charges will have kind of different applicability of the rules to them. There'll be lawyers, obviously, working very long hours and very hard at trying to find ways in which either City have adhered to the rules, or, like with the Leicester case, that the fact they've stuck to the rules and it's not as the Premier League intended. So it doesn't necessarily bode that well for the Premier League in terms of the strength of the rules that are in place, but obviously the City charges are very different in a number of respects, so we'll wait and see.